The planet Orus 9 was supposed to be the end of human expansion. It was the throne world of the Vexor, a species that had long ago traded their flesh for data and their souls for silicon. The Vexor didn't fight with soldiers. They fought with code. Their atmosphere was a thick, invisible soup of electromagnetic interference, a digital web that could turn a human tank's targeting computer against its own crew in milliseconds. To the Vexor, war was a game of silence. They didn't need to fire a single shot to win. They would simply broadcast a data stream, a pulse of energy so complex and aggressive that it fried every circuit, jammed every radio, and bricked every smart weapon within 1,000 miles. For centuries, invaders had landed on Orus 9, only to find their high-tech rifles frozen, their power armor locked tight, and their ships falling from the sky like dead birds. When the 101st Sloggers Regiment arrived, the Vexor High Control felt nothing but calculated pity. They saw the human fleet, the usual blocky iron ships, and they prepared the silence. Initiate the data scream, the Vexor Central Core commanded. Extinguish their light. Let them sit in the dark until they starve. On the surface of Orus 9, the effect was instantaneous. Thousands of human soldiers were in the middle of a push toward the main Vexor spire when suddenly, their heads-up displays flickered and died. Their smart rifles, which required a digital handshake to unlock the trigger, became nothing more than heavy plastic clubs. Their radios emitted only static. "My HUD is dark. I can't see the targets," a young private screamed, tearing off his electronic helmet. "My rifle won't fire." "The OS is corrupted," another yelled frantically, clicking a dead trigger. The Vexor drones began to advance. They were sleek, multi-legged machines that didn't need to aim. They moved in perfect synchronization, guided by a central server. They saw the humans as helpless, blinded children. The Vexor didn't even use camouflage. They walked out in the open, confident that the humans had no way to hit them. But in the center of the human line, Sergeant Elias Thorne was not panicking. He wasn't even looking at his smartwatch. Thorne was an old-school soldier in a new-school war. He reached into a long wooden crate that had been carried into the trenches by hand. He pulled out a weapon that looked like it belonged in a museum. It was made of dark oil-rubbed walnut wood and heavy cold steel. It had no battery. It had no screen. It had no software. It was a bolt-action rifle, a 7.62mm iron savior. "Sloggers, listen up," Thorne's voice boomed across the silent trench, unaided by any speaker. "They killed your gadgets. They killed your toys, but they didn't kill the powder. Strip your electronics. Throw away the plastic junk. Grab the iron." The veterans of the 101st knew the drill. This was why they were called the Sloggers. While the rest of the galaxy had moved to lasers and guided smart rounds, the Sloggers had spent every weekend on the range with mechanical triggers and iron sights. Thorne stood up on the firing step. He didn't have a red dot sight. He looked through a simple notch of steel at the end of his barrel. He saw a Vexor drone 300 yards away, its glowing purple sensors mocking the dead human technology. Thorne took a deep breath. He felt the cold steel of the trigger against his finger. He wasn't waiting for a computer to tell him when to fire. He was feeling the wind on his face. He was trusting his own eyes. The rifle kicked hard into Thorne's shoulder, a violent physical reminder of the power of expanding gas. A cloud of gray smoke and orange flame erupted from the muzzle. 300 yards away, the lead Vexor drone's central sensor pod didn't just malfunction, it exploded. A 175-grain lead-core bullet moving at 2,600 feet per second had punched straight through the expensive, unshielded glass. The drone sparked and collapsed into the mud. The Vexor High Control paused. Logic error. How had a projectile been fired without a digital ignition? How had the human hit a target at that range without a ballistic computer? Recalculate, the core ordered. It was a fluke, an accidental discharge. Continue the advance. Then the entire human line spoke at once. Boom. 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 The sound was like a drumroll of thunder. The trenches were filled with the smell of sulfur and the rhythmic clack-clack of thousands of steel bolts being cycled by hand. The Vexor drones, which were walking in the open because they knew the humans' smart targeting was offline, began to fall in heaps. The humans weren't firing beams of light that could be refracted. They were firing solid pieces of metal that didn't care about electronic jamming. They're using springs, a Vexor sub-commander signaled in a state of digital shock. They are using chemical explosions to propel mass. There is no software to hack. There is no signal to jam. They are using the laws of the physical world. The Vexor tried to adjust. They sent out a massive electromagnetic pulse designed to fry any internal combustion engine. But the humans weren't using engines. They were walking. They were charging. Thorne led the way, his bayonet fixed to the end of his rifle, a 10-inch spike of sharpened steel. "The gospel of momentum, boys," he roared. "If it doesn't have a chip, they can't stop it. Keep the pressure on." The siege of Orus 9 turned into a nightmare for the high-tech aliens. Their beautiful interconnected network was a weakness. One drone getting hit by a dumb bullet caused a data lag in the rest of the unit. The humans, meanwhile, were decentralized. Every soldier was an independent fire control system. Every soldier was a self-contained engine of war. The humans breached the outer walls of the spire. The Vexor defenders, who were essentially floating brains in jars, had never seen a human up close. They had always fought through screens. Now they were seeing men covered in mud and blood, swinging heavy wooden stocks, and driving steel blades into their delicate machinery. Thorne reached the central chamber. The high control core stood before him, a massive glowing sphere of pure data. "Wait," the core broadcasted through a nearby speaker, its voice trembling. "We can negotiate. We can give you our technology. We can upgrade your primitive weapons. We can make you gods of the digital age." Thorne looked at the glowing sphere. He looked at the heavy empty brass casing he had just ejected from his rifle. He picked it up and showed it to the core. "See this?" Thorne asked. "This is a piece of brass. Inside it was a bit of powder. On the end was a bit of lead. No fancy code. No hidden logic. Just a bit of fire and a lot of momentum." Thorne chambered his last round. Click-clack. "Your problem is that you think the world is made of ones and zeros," Thorne said, leveling his rifle. "But out here in the mud, the world is made of lead and steel, and lead doesn't have an off switch." Thorne pulled the trigger. The high control core shattered as the bullet tore through its crystal lattice. The silence died instantly. The purple lightning in the sky vanished. Outside, the sun finally broke through the clouds. The high-tech human gear started to flicker back to life. HUDs rebooted. Smart guns ran their self-diagnostics, but the soldiers of the 101st didn't even look at their digital gear. They were too busy cleaning the mud off their iron sights and counting their empty casings. This is the low-tech siege. Humanity is the only species in the galaxy that understands that technology is a luxury, but physics is a necessity. We are the ones who keep a club under the bed and a mechanical rifle in the closet. We know that the more complex a machine is, the easier it is to break. But a spring, a firing pin, a bit of gunpowder, those are the eternal truths of warfare. The Vexor throne world fell that day, not to a superior AI, but to a species that was willing to go back to the mud and the iron. We proved that you can hack the mind, but you can hack the hammer. This has been HFY Sage of Stars. Keep it simple, keep it heavy. If you enjoyed this mechanical victory over the digital gods, hit that like button and comment below. What's your favorite piece of low-tech gear that still beats high-tech alternatives? Subscribe for the next conquest. The screens are dark. The iron is hot.